The search and rescue team found Sarah's hiking boots placed neatly side by side on a rock ledge overlooking the canyon, her socks folded carefully inside them, but there was no trace of Sarah herself anywhere within a 50-mile radius, despite 3 weeks of intensive searching by professional teams, volunteer groups, and advanced tracking technology that should have been able to locate any trace of human presence in the rugged Colorado wilderness. What made Sarah's disappearance even more baffling was that the ledge where her boots were found was accessible only by technical rock climbing equipment that Sarah didn't possess. And the location was over 15 miles from the established hiking trail where she had been last seen by other hikers just 6 hours earlier. The boots showed no signs of wear or damage that would indicate Sarah had walked to that remote location, and forensic analysis revealed no fingerprints, DNA, or other evidence that Sarah had ever touched the boots that were supposedly hers. My name is Detective Michael Rodriguez, and that night taught me that some missing persons cases do not get solved because we find the answers. They get closed because the evidence is so impossible that continuing the investigation would force us to question everything we think we know about the laws of physics, human behavior, and reality itself. Ever wondered how someone can vanish from a crowded subway platform in broad daylight with hundreds of witnesses? Ever questioned how a person can disappear from a monitored elevator during a 90-second ride? Drop a comment below if you've ever encountered evidence that made you question whether some disappearances involve forces beyond our understanding. Because tonight I'm sharing 7 cases that will make you realize that in our world of surveillance cameras and electronic tracking, some people don't just go missing, they seem to step out of reality entirely. These aren't cold cases that lack evidence or witnesses. These are disappearances that occurred under impossible circumstances, with evidence that contradicts the laws of physics, human behavior, and rational explanation. Sarah Chen was a 28-year-old software engineer from Denver who was known for her meticulous planning and safety-conscious approach to outdoor activities. On September 14, 2019, Sarah set out for a solo day hike on the well-marked Emerald Lake Trail in Rocky Mountain National Park, a moderate 3.2-mile round trip that she had completed successfully on multiple previous occasions. Sarah was an experienced hiker who always informed family members of her exact route and expected return time, carried emergency equipment, including GPS devices and satellite communication equipment, and had never failed to return from a hike on schedule or check in with her emergency contacts as planned. Her hiking plan was documented in detail, including her intended route, rest stops, photo locations, and estimated timeline for each segment of the hike. The last confirmed sighting of Sarah was at 11:30 a.m. by a family of hikers who recognized her from previous encounters on the trail and stopped to chat briefly about trail conditions and wildlife sightings. The family reported that Sarah appeared to be in good spirits, was properly equipped for the day hike, and was following her normal hiking pace and route toward Emerald Lake. Sarah's satellite communicator sent its scheduled 12:00 p.m. check-in message confirming her location and status, indicating that she was on schedule and experiencing no problems with weather, equipment, or physical condition. Sarah's failure to send her scheduled 3 p.m. check-in message triggered automatic emergency protocols that alerted park rangers and initiated search and rescue operations within hours of her missed communication. The initial search efforts focused on the established trail route and the immediate area around Emerald Lake, using teams of experienced park rangers and volunteer search and rescue personnel who were familiar with the terrain and the common locations where lost hikers might be found. The search teams used tracking dogs, aerial reconnaissance, and systematic grid searches to cover all possible routes and locations where Sarah might have traveled or sought shelter. But the search teams found no trace of Sarah along her intended route or in any of the areas where a lost or injured hiker would typically be located. Sarah's GPS device and satellite communicator were never found, despite intensive searches using metal detectors and electronic signal detection equipment that should have been able to locate the devices even if they had been damaged or buried. Subscribe and hit that notification bell if you've ever wondered how someone can vanish from a well-traveled trail while carrying multiple tracking devices, because what the search teams discovered about Sarah's boots challenged everything investigators thought they knew about how people disappear in the wilderness. The discovery of Sarah's hiking boots on the remote rock ledge 15 miles from her intended route created more questions than answers about her disappearance. The location where the boots were found required technical rock climbing skills and equipment to access, and there was no evidence that Sarah possessed the climbing experience or gear necessary to reach such a remote and dangerous location. The boots were placed with deliberate care and precision that suggested human intervention, but there were no footprints, rope marks, or other evidence of how they had arrived at that location. Forensic analysis of the boots revealed that they contained no DNA evidence from Sarah, despite the fact that she had been wearing them for several hours before her disappearance and should have left traces of skin cells, hair, and other biological material inside the boots. The absence of any forensic evidence linking Sarah to the boots raised questions about whether they were actually the same boots she had been wearing, despite their perfect match to her documented footwear and the confirmation from family members who recognized specific wear patterns and modifications that Sarah had made to improve their fit and comfort. The investigation expanded to include analysis of weather conditions, geological surveys of the area, and interviews with all other hikers and park personnel who had been in the area during the time period when Sarah disappeared. The comprehensive investigation found no evidence of foul play, no indication that Sarah had planned to disappear voluntarily, and no environmental factors that could explain her vanishing or the mysterious placement of her boots in an inaccessible location. Sarah's case remains open and unsolved, with periodic searches and investigations that have failed to provide any additional evidence or explanations for her disappearance. The case has become a source of ongoing concern for park officials and hiking safety experts who cannot explain how an experienced, well-equipped hiker could vanish without a trace from a well-traveled trail, leaving behind only her boots in a location that she could not have reached under normal circumstances. But if you think mysterious boot placement in an impossible location represents the most baffling aspect of missing persons cases, wait until you hear what happened to Marcus Thompson at a suburban Ohio high school. Because sometimes people don't just vanish from remote wilderness areas. They disappear from monitored hallways with security cameras and multiple witnesses in spaces where vanishing should be physically impossible. Marcus Thompson was a 16-year-old high school junior at Westfield High School in suburban Columbus, Ohio, known for his perfect attendance record, academic achievement, and responsible behavior that made him a model student. On March 3, 2020, Marcus was attending his regular chemistry class in room 204, a second-floor classroom in the school's main academic building, when he asked for permission to use the restroom during the middle of the class period. Marcus left the chemistry classroom at 10:47 a.m., according to multiple witnesses, including his teacher and 23 classmates who were present during the lesson. The classroom had only one entrance and exit, a single door that opened onto a hallway that was monitored by security cameras and was typically busy with students and staff moving between classes and activities throughout the school day. The restroom that Marcus was heading to was located directly across the hallway from his chemistry classroom, a distance of approximately 30 feet that would normally require less than 1 minute to traverse under normal circumstances. The hallway between the classroom and restroom was straight and unobstructed, with clear sight lines and no alcoves, stairwells, or other areas where someone could hide or change direction without being observed. Marcus never arrived at the restroom, and he never returned to his chemistry class, despite the fact that multiple witnesses confirmed he had left the classroom and that the security cameras showed no record of him traveling through the hallway or entering any other areas of the school building. The chemistry teacher became concerned when Marcus failed to return after 15 minutes, and she sent another student to check the restroom and look for Marcus in the immediate area. The search for Marcus within the school building began immediately, with teachers and administrators checking all restrooms, classrooms, and common areas where a student might go during class time. The school's security system was reviewed to track Marcus's movements through the building, but the cameras showed no evidence that he had ever left his chemistry classroom or traveled through any of the monitored corridors and stairwells. Hit that like button and share this with anyone who works in education. Because what investigators discovered about the security footage proved that some disappearances occur in spaces that should make vanishing impossible, even when every exit is monitored and every movement is recorded. The school building was placed on lockdown while a comprehensive search was conducted by school personnel, local law enforcement, and emergency responders who systematically checked every room, closet, storage area, and possible hiding place within the facility. The search included areas that were normally locked or restricted to students, such as mechanical rooms, administrative offices, and maintenance areas that could only be accessed with special keys or authorization. The intensive search of the school building found no trace of Marcus or any evidence that he had been present in any location other than his chemistry classroom. The school's security system was thoroughly analyzed by technical experts who confirmed that the cameras were functioning properly and that there were no blind spots or technical malfunctions that could explain Marcus's disappearance from the monitored hallway. The investigation expanded to include interviews with all students and staff who had been in the school building during the time period when Marcus disappeared, analysis of the school's entry and exit records to determine if Marcus had somehow left the building, and searches of the surrounding neighborhood and areas where a missing teenager might be found. The comprehensive investigation found no evidence that Marcus had left the school building or that anyone had seen him outside of his chemistry classroom after 10:47 a.m. Marcus's disappearance from a monitored hallway in a secure school building with no evidence of how he had left the area or where he had gone created a mystery that challenged investigators' understanding of how someone could vanish from a location with multiple witnesses and comprehensive security surveillance. The case attracted national attention from law enforcement agencies and missing persons experts who were unable to provide explanations for how a teenager could disappear from a 30-foot hallway without being detected by cameras or witnesses. But even a teenager vanishing from a monitored school hallway seems almost explainable compared to what happened to Patricia Williams in Manhattan. Because sometimes people don't just disappear from open spaces where they might theoretically find ways to evade detection. They vanish from completely enclosed environments where there is literally nowhere to go and no way to leave undetected. Patricia Williams was a 42-year-old marketing executive who worked on the 37th floor of a prestigious Manhattan office building, commuting daily from her apartment in Brooklyn using a combination of subway and elevator transportation that had become a reliable and routine part of her professional life. On November 8, 2018, Patricia entered the elevator in the lobby of her office building at 8:23 a.m. According to security camera footage that clearly showed her pressing the button for the 37th floor and standing alone in the elevator car as the doors closed. The office building where Patricia worked was a modern 42-story structure with a sophisticated elevator system that included multiple cars, computerized controls, and comprehensive monitoring systems that tracked the movement and status of each elevator throughout the building. The elevator system was regularly maintained and inspected, with detailed logs of all mechanical operations and passenger traffic. Patricia's elevator ride to the 37th floor should have taken approximately 90 seconds under normal operating conditions, and the building's elevator monitoring system showed that the car she had entered made its scheduled stops and arrived at the 37th floor at 8:24 a.m., where the doors opened automatically to allow passengers to exit. But when the elevator doors opened on the 37th floor, Patricia was not inside the car, despite the fact that the elevator had made no stops between the lobby and her destination floor. The elevator car that Patricia had entered was equipped with security cameras that recorded all passenger activity during the ride. But the footage from Patricia's elevator trip showed only an empty car traveling from the lobby to the 37th floor, with no evidence that Patricia or any other passenger had ever been inside the elevator during that journey. The security footage was reviewed multiple times by technical experts who confirmed that the cameras had been functioning properly and that there had been no technical malfunctions or recording errors that could explain the absence of Patricia from the elevator footage. Turn on notifications if you've ever wondered how someone can enter a monitored elevator and simply cease to exist during a 90-second ride. Because what building security discovered about the elevator's mechanical systems proved that some disappearances occur in spaces where vanishing should be physically impossible. The building's security team immediately began searching for Patricia throughout the 42-story structure, checking all floors, stairwells, restrooms, and common areas where she might have gone if she had somehow exited the elevator at a different floor than her intended destination. The search included areas that were normally restricted to building tenants and required special access cards or authorization to enter. The comprehensive search of the office building found no trace of Patricia or any evidence that she had been present in any location within the structure after entering the elevator in the lobby. The building's security system was analyzed to determine if Patricia had somehow left the building through emergency exits or service entrances, but there was no record of her using any exit points or being detected by any of the building's extensive security monitoring systems. The investigation expanded to include analysis of the elevator's mechanical systems and computerized controls to determine if there were any malfunctions or unusual operations that could explain Patricia's disappearance during the 90-second elevator ride. Technical experts examined every component of the elevator system, including the car itself, the shaft, the control systems, and the safety mechanisms, but found no evidence of mechanical problems or system failures. The elevator shaft was thoroughly searched using specialized equipment and techniques to determine if Patricia had somehow fallen or been trapped in areas between floors or in mechanical spaces that were not normally accessible to passengers. The search of the elevator shaft found no evidence of human presence or any indication that Patricia had ever been in areas outside of the passenger compartment. Patricia's disappearance from a monitored elevator during a routine 90-second ride between floors created a mystery that challenged investigators' understanding of how someone could vanish from an enclosed space with comprehensive surveillance and mechanical monitoring. The case attracted attention from elevator safety experts and engineering professionals who were unable to provide explanations for how a passenger could disappear from an elevator car without leaving any trace or evidence of their presence. But even someone vanishing from a monitored elevator car seems almost rational compared to what happened to Dr. James Mitchell at San Francisco General Hospital. Because sometimes people don't just disappear from mechanical conveyances or isolated locations. They vanish from busy, well-staffed medical facilities where every movement is tracked, and every person is accounted for as a matter of life and death. Dr. James Mitchell was a 35-year-old emergency room physician at San Francisco General Hospital, known for his dedication to patient care and his methodical approach to medical procedures and hospital protocols. On June 15, 2021, Dr. Mitchell was working the night shift in the emergency department when he left the nurses' station at 2:14 a.m. to check on a patient in room 12, a routine task that should have taken no more than 5 minutes to complete. The emergency department where Dr. Mitchell worked was a busy, well-staffed facility with comprehensive security systems, including cameras in all corridors and common areas, electronic access controls for restricted areas, and detailed logs of all personnel movements and activities throughout the hospital. The department operated under strict protocols for staff accountability and patient safety. Dr. Mitchell's route from the nurses' station to patient room 12 was a straight corridor approximately 100 feet long, with clear sight lines and no obstructions or alternative routes that would allow someone to deviate from the direct path between the two locations. The corridor was monitored by multiple security cameras and was typically busy with medical staff, patients, and visitors moving between different areas of the emergency department. Multiple witnesses, including nurses, orderlies, and other medical staff, confirmed that Dr. Mitchell had left the nurses' station at 2:14 a.m. and had been walking toward patient room 12 when he was last seen by colleagues who were working in the immediate area. The witnesses described Dr. Mitchell as appearing normal and focused on his patient care responsibilities, with no indication of distress, confusion, or any unusual behavior. Dr. Mitchell never arrived at patient room 12, and he was never seen again by any hospital personnel, despite the fact that the corridor he was traveling was under constant surveillance and was occupied by multiple staff members who should have observed his movements and activities. The patient in room 12 reported that no doctor had visited during the time period when Dr. Mitchell was supposed to have conducted his examination. Share this video with anyone in healthcare who has experienced the impossible, because what hospital security discovered about Dr. Mitchell's disappearance proved that some vanishings occur in the most monitored and controlled environments, where every movement should be tracked and every person should be accounted for at all times. The hospital's security team immediately began searching for Dr. Mitchell throughout the medical facility, checking all departments, patient rooms, offices, and restricted areas where a missing staff member might be found. The search included areas that required special access cards or authorization to enter, such as surgical suites, administrative offices, and mechanical areas that were normally off-limits to general hospital personnel. The comprehensive search of the hospital found no trace of Dr. Mitchell, or any evidence that he had been present in any location within the facility after leaving the nurse's station. The hospital's security system was reviewed to track Dr. Mitchell's movements through the building, but the cameras showed no record of him traveling beyond the midpoint of the corridor between the nurse's station and patient room 12, where he seemed to simply vanish without explanation. The security footage was analyzed by technical experts who confirmed that the cameras had been functioning properly and that there were no blind spots, technical malfunctions, or recording errors that could explain Dr. Mitchell's disappearance from the monitored corridor. The footage clearly showed Dr. Mitchell walking toward patient room 12, but he seemed to fade from view in the middle of the hallway without any indication of where he had gone. The investigation expanded to include interviews with all hospital personnel who had been working during the night shift analysis of the hospital's entry and exit records to determine if Dr. Mitchell had somehow left the building in searches of the surrounding neighborhood and areas where a missing person might be found. The comprehensive investigation found no evidence that Dr. Mitchell had left the hospital or that anyone had seen him outside of the emergency department after 2:14 a.m. Dr. Mitchell's disappearance from a monitored hospital corridor with multiple witnesses and comprehensive security surveillance created a mystery that challenged investigators' understanding of how someone could vanish from a location with constant observation and strict accountability procedures. But even a doctor vanishing from a busy hospital corridor seems almost mundane compared to what happened to flight attendant Lisa Rodriguez at 30,000 feet. Because sometimes people don't just disappear from ground-level facilities where they might theoretically find ways to escape. They vanish from aircraft cabins where there is literally nowhere to go and no physical way to leave the confined space. Lisa Rodriguez was a 29-year-old flight attendant with 8 years of experience working for a major commercial airline, known for her professionalism, attention to safety protocols, and excellent customer service skills. On February 22, 2020, Lisa was working on Flight 447 from Los Angeles to Chicago, a routine domestic flight aboard a Boeing 737 aircraft with 147 passengers and a crew of 6 operating under normal weather conditions and standard flight procedures. The aircraft was equipped with comprehensive safety and monitoring systems, including multiple cameras throughout the passenger cabin and crew areas, detailed logs of all crew activities and movements, and strict protocols for crew accountability and passenger safety that were designed to ensure that all personnel could be located and contacted at any time during the flight. At 3:42 p.m., approximately 2 hours into the 4-hour flight, Lisa was conducting routine passenger service in the main cabin when she informed her colleague flight attendant, Maria Santos, that she was going to check on passengers in the rear section of the aircraft and ensure that all safety equipment was properly secured and accessible. Lisa's movement through the aircraft cabin was a standard procedure that she had performed thousands of times during her career. Maria Santos and several passengers observed Lisa walking down the center aisle of the aircraft toward the rear section, carrying her standard service equipment and following the normal procedures for in-flight passenger assistance and safety checks. Lisa appeared to be in good health and normal spirits, with no indication of illness, distress, or any unusual behavior that would suggest she was experiencing personal or professional problems during the flight. Lisa never reached the rear section of the aircraft, and she was never seen again by any crew members or passengers. Despite the fact that the aircraft cabin was a confined space with limited areas where someone could go unobserved for extended periods. The aircraft's aisle was straight and unobstructed, with clear sight lines from the forward galley to the rear of the cabin, and there were no areas where Lisa could have diverted from her intended route without being observed. Ring that notification bell if you've ever wondered how someone can vanish from a confined aircraft cabin at 30,000 feet with nowhere to go and no way to leave, because what the flight crew discovered during their search proved that some disappearances defy not just logic but the basic laws of physics and confined space. When Lisa failed to return from her routine check of the rear cabin section, Maria Santos became concerned and went to look for her colleague, expecting to find Lisa assisting passengers or conducting safety inspections in the rear area of the aircraft. Maria's search of the rear cabin found no trace of Lisa or any indication that she had been present in that section of the aircraft during the time period when she was supposed to have been conducting her routine checks. The flight crew immediately began a comprehensive search of the aircraft, checking all passenger areas, crew stations, restrooms, galleys, and storage compartments where a missing crew member might be found. The search included areas that were normally restricted to crew members and required special access or authorization to enter, such as cargo areas, mechanical compartments, and emergency equipment storage locations. The intensive search of the aircraft found no trace of Lisa or any evidence that she had been present in any location within the aircraft after being observed walking down the center aisle toward the rear section. The aircraft's safety and monitoring systems were reviewed to track Lisa's movements and activities, but there was no record of her accessing any restricted areas or using any emergency equipment. The flight was diverted to the nearest airport for an emergency landing, where law enforcement and aviation safety investigators conducted a thorough examination of the aircraft and interviewed all passengers and crew members who had been aboard during Lisa's disappearance. The investigation found no evidence of foul play, no indication that Lisa had planned to disappear, and no mechanical or safety issues that could explain her vanishing from the aircraft cabin. Lisa's disappearance from a confined aircraft cabin during flight, with multiple witnesses and comprehensive safety monitoring, created a mystery that challenged investigators' understanding of how someone could vanish from a location with limited space and constant observation. But even someone disappearing from an aircraft cabin at cruising altitude seems almost explainable compared to what happened to graduate student Kevin Park at Harvard University. Because sometimes people don't just vanish from transportation vehicles or medical facilities, they disappear from the most secure and monitored academic environments, where every researcher is supervised and every movement is documented for the protection of priceless historical materials. Kevin Park was a 24-year-old doctoral candidate in medieval history at Harvard University, known for his dedicated research habits and his extensive use of the university's rare book collections and archival materials for his dissertation on 13th century manuscript illumination. On October 30th, 2019, Kevin was conducting research in the Widener Library's restricted rare book collection, a secure area that required special permission and supervision for access to valuable and irreplaceable historical documents. The rare book collection was housed in a climate-controlled secure section of the library with limited access, comprehensive security monitoring, and strict protocols for researcher supervision and material handling that were designed to protect the valuable collections while allowing legitimate scholarly research. Kevin had been granted access to the collection for his dissertation research and was familiar with the procedures and requirements for working with rare and fragile historical materials. Kevin entered the rare book collection at 1:15 p.m. according to security records and the supervision log maintained by the collection's librarian, Dr. Elizabeth Harper, who was responsible for monitoring all researchers and ensuring compliance with the collection's security and preservation protocols. Kevin was working with a specific group of 13th century illuminated manuscripts that had been requested in advance and prepared for his examination. The rare book collection reading room was a small, secure space with only one entrance and exit, monitored by security cameras and supervised by Dr. Harper, who maintained visual contact with all researchers working in the collection. Kevin was the only researcher in the collection that afternoon, and he was seated at a designated research table approximately 15 feet from Dr. Harper's supervision desk, well within her line of sight and observation. At 2:30 p.m., Dr. Harper stepped away from her desk for approximately 3 minutes to retrieve additional materials from the collection's storage area, a routine task that required her to leave the reading room briefly, but did not involve any breach of security protocols or unusual circumstances. When Dr. Harper returned to her supervision desk, Kevin was no longer seated at his research table, and there was no indication of where he had gone or why he had left his research materials unattended. Comment below if you work in academic libraries or secure facilities, because what Dr. Harper discovered about the reading room's security footage proved that some disappearances occur in the most controlled and monitored environments, where every person and every movement should be tracked and recorded. Dr. Harper immediately checked the reading room's single entrance and exit, but found no evidence that Kevin had left the collection area, and the security system showed no record of anyone entering or leaving the rare book collection during the brief period when she had been away from her desk. The security cameras that monitored the reading room showed Kevin seated at his research table when Dr. Harper left the room, but the cameras showed no record of him leaving his seat or moving toward the exit. The library's security team immediately began searching for Kevin throughout the Widener Library building, checking all reading rooms, study areas, restrooms, and common spaces where a missing researcher might be found. The search included areas that were normally restricted to library staff and required special access or authorization to enter, such as storage areas, administrative offices, and mechanical spaces. The comprehensive search of the library building found no trace of Kevin or any evidence that he had been present in any location within the facility after disappearing from the rare book collection reading room. The library's security system was reviewed to track Kevin's movements through the building, but there was no record of him leaving the rare book collection or traveling through any of the monitored corridors and areas. Kevin's research materials were found exactly as he had left them, with no indication that he had planned to leave or that his work had been interrupted by any emergency or unusual circumstance. The manuscripts he had been examining were properly secured and showed no signs of damage or disturbance, suggesting that Kevin's disappearance had been sudden and unexpected rather than planned or deliberate. Kevin's disappearance from a secure, supervised library collection, with comprehensive monitoring and limited access, created a mystery that challenged investigators' understanding of how someone could vanish from a location with constant observation and strict security protocols. But even a graduate student vanishing from a supervised reading room seems almost rational compared to what happened to federal analyst Rachel Kim in Washington, D.C. Because sometimes people don't just disappear from academic or professional environments where security might have gaps. They vanish from the most public and crowded spaces imaginable, where hundreds of witnesses and comprehensive surveillance should make disappearance absolutely impossible. Rachel Kim was a 31-year-old federal government analyst who commuted daily from her apartment in Arlington, Virginia, to her office in downtown Washington, D.C., using the Metro subway system that she had navigated successfully for over 6 years without any significant problems or safety concerns. On April 7, 2021, Rachel was waiting for the Blue Line train at the Rosslyn Metro station during the morning rush hour, following her normal commuting routine and schedule. The Rosslyn Metro station was a busy underground facility that served thousands of commuters daily with comprehensive security systems, including multiple cameras throughout the platform areas. electronic fare controls that tracked all passenger movements and transit police presence that provided safety and security for passengers using the subway system. The station operated under strict safety protocols and emergency procedures. Rachel arrived at the Rosslyn station at 8:42 a.m., according to her Metro card records and security camera footage that clearly showed her entering the station through the main entrance and proceeding to the Blue Line platform to wait for her train to downtown Washington. Rachel was dressed in her normal business attire and appeared to be following her routine commuting behavior, with no indication of distress, illness, or any unusual circumstances. The Blue Line platform at Rosslyn was crowded with morning commuters waiting for trains, and Rachel positioned herself in her usual location near the center of the platform, approximately 20 feet from the platform edge and surrounded by other passengers who were also waiting for the next downtown train. The platform area was well lit and monitored by multiple security cameras that provided comprehensive coverage of all passenger activities and movements. At 8:47 a.m., the Blue Line train arrived at the platform and stopped to allow passengers to board and exit according to the normal subway operations and passenger flow procedures. Multiple witnesses, including other commuters and Metro personnel, observed Rachel standing on the platform as the train arrived. But when the train doors opened and passengers began boarding, Rachel was no longer visible among the crowd of commuters on the platform. Subscribe if you've ever wondered how someone can vanish from a crowded public space with hundreds of witnesses and comprehensive surveillance. Because what Metro security discovered about Rachel's disappearance proved that some vanishings occur in the most public and monitored locations where anonymity should be impossible and every movement should be recorded. The train operator and Metro personnel immediately noticed that Rachel had disappeared from the platform area, despite the fact that she had been clearly visible just moments before the train's arrival, and there had been no indication that she had moved toward the train doors or any other area of the platform. The train was held at the station while Metro personnel conducted an immediate search of the platform area and the train cars to locate Rachel. The search of the platform and train found no trace of Rachel or any evidence that she had boarded the train or moved to any other area of the station during the brief period when the train was arriving and passengers were boarding. The platform area was thoroughly examined for any signs of accident, injury, or foul play, but no evidence was found to explain Rachel's sudden disappearance from the crowded platform. Metro security personnel immediately reviewed the station as surveillance footage to track Rachel's movements and determine where she had gone when she disappeared from the platform. The security cameras clearly showed Rachel standing on the platform as the train approached, but the footage showed no record of her moving toward the train, leaving the platform area, or going to any other location within the station during the time period when she vanished. The investigation expanded to include searches of all areas within the Rosslyn station, including restrooms, concourses, mezzanine levels, and restricted areas that were normally off-limits to passengers. Metro personnel and law enforcement officers conducted a comprehensive search of the station's tunnels, tracks, and mechanical areas to determine if Rachel had somehow fallen or been trapped in areas that were not normally accessible to passengers. Rachel's Metro card showed no record of her exiting the station or using any other Metro facilities after her arrival at Rosslyn, and there was no evidence that she had left the subway system or traveled to any other location using public transportation. The investigation included interviews with all Metro personnel and passengers who had been present during Rachel's disappearance, but no witnesses could provide any explanation for how she had vanished from the crowded platform. Rachel's disappearance from a crowded monitored subway platform during rush hour with multiple witnesses and comprehensive security surveillance created a mystery that challenged investigators' understanding of how someone could vanish from a location with constant observation and heavy foot traffic. These 7 cases represent some of the most baffling and disturbing missing persons investigations in recent years, each involving circumstances that defy logical explanation and challenge our understanding of how people can disappear in our modern, monitored world. From Sarah Chen's impossible hike to a location she couldn't have reached, to Marcus Thompson's vanishing from a monitored school hallway, to Patricia Williams' disappearance from a recorded elevator ride, each case presents evidence that contradicts the laws of physics and human behavior. Dr. James Mitchell's vanishing from a busy hospital corridor, Lisa Rodriguez's disappearance from a confined aircraft cabin, Kevin Park's vanishing from a supervised library reading room, and Rachel Kim's disappearance from a crowded subway platform all demonstrate that people can vanish under circumstances that should make disappearance impossible, leaving behind evidence that challenges our most basic assumptions about reality. The most disturbing aspect of these cases is not just that people disappeared, it's that they disappeared from locations where vanishing should have been physically impossible. These aren't cases of people walking into the wilderness and getting lost, or leaving their homes voluntarily and starting new lives. These are cases of people literally ceasing to exist in monitored, confined, and witnessed spaces where every movement should have been tracked and every exit should have been recorded. Each case involves multiple witnesses, comprehensive surveillance systems, and thorough investigations that found no evidence of how the disappearances occurred or where the missing persons could have gone. The evidence in each case contradicts not just our understanding of missing persons investigations, but our fundamental assumptions about the nature of physical reality and the laws that govern human existence. These cases remain open and unsolved, not because investigators lack dedication or resources, but because the evidence is so contradictory and impossible that it defies any rational explanation or investigative approach. The families of these missing persons continue to search for answers that may not exist in any form that our current understanding of the world can accommodate. If you've ever wondered how someone can simply vanish without a trace in our world of constant surveillance and electronic tracking, these cases provide disturbing proof that some disappearances transcend our understanding of what's possible and venture into realms that challenge the very foundations of logic and reality. Comment below if these cases have made you question everything you thought you knew about missing persons investigations, and remember that in a world where people can vanish from monitored elevators, crowded platforms, and supervised reading rooms, the assumption that someone who disappears can eventually be found may be nothing more than a comforting illusion. Before you go, check out the playlist in the description for more cases that challenge our understanding of reality itself. Because in the end, the most terrifying realization isn't that these people disappeared. It's that they disappeared in ways that suggest our world operates according to rules we don't understand, and that some missing persons cases involve phenomena that exist outside the boundaries of conventional investigation and rational explanation. Sleep well tonight, and remember, the next time you step into an elevator, walk down a monitored hallway, or stand on a crowded platform, ask yourself whether you're really as safe and trackable as you think you are, or whether you're just one step away from joining the ranks of people who didn't just go missing, but who seem to step out of reality entirely, leaving behind only questions that have no answers and evidence that challenges everything we thought we knew about the world we live in.